802 community. So back in early January, Stephen did a workshop on breathing, and I was supposed to do a workshop on breathing during fitness at the end of January. Fast forward and 3 months have flown by, so we're finally getting this done. Life has been a bit busy, so I apologize for the delay. However, there is snow outside right now, so it does have a bit of that January feel to it. So I just want to start expanding on what Stephen was talking about in his previous breathing workshop. He had a great review of the anatomy, and so I just want to go over a couple quick concepts and how those will apply to what we're talking about. But I would highly recommend going back and rewatching the beginning of his video on the anatomy of the breath in the trunk, in the core, the diaphragm, the pelvic floor, the abdominals. So then you're prepared for what we're about to talk about. But for our quick little review, so when we're thinking about our trunk and our diaphragm in the context of stability, I like to use a little bit of a balloon. I also use the concept of a column. You'll hear that a lot. But the balloon will help us see the dynamic component of our diaphragm and our trunk. So your diaphragm's up here, your pelvic floor is down here, and then you have your abs. Back here would be your spine. So what happens when I breathe in? That diaphragm goes down, and in order to maintain good pressure control through here, that pelvic floor has to expand. I exhale, everything goes up together. So it's this synced motion. I've also heard it described as like two jellyfish. So when one jellyfish goes down, the other jellyfish goes down, and both of them come up together. And then the abdominals here, what they're doing is they are actually letting go with control. So think about like when you lower down from a pull-up bar with control, instead of just dropping down, you have that slow lower, or when you lower down into a squat with control. That's what the abs are doing. They're letting go with control to maintain this pressure here. So you can see. So then this doesn't happen, or this doesn't happen. So they let go with control, and then as we exhale, they drop back in and everything comes back up. So it's kind of like this. Some common faults that we see when we're bracing is people will grip with their abdominals a lot. So if I'm bracing and I'm gripping really hard with my abs, because that's kind of what we're told to do to be strong under a bar or doing a push-up. If I grip here, look what happens to that dynamic control system. We have bulging upwards, which is when often you'll see that type of position, and you have bulging downwards, which is sometimes when we'll feel pressure in our pelvic area, or we may get a little bit of leakage. So that happens there, and that prevents us from being able to breathe. Try breathing with your abs gripping. If I grip my abs, my breath becomes really small and little. So what we need to figure out is, how do we have this dynamic stability, this dynamic kind of function going on between our diaphragm, our pelvic floor, and our abs to maintain stability while we're breathing. This will be very important for if you're doing a Metcon. So think about, you can probably hold your breath, and probably should hold your breath when you're doing your 1 rep max squat. But then if you're holding your breath while squatting, while trying to do Murph, during those air squats, you're not going to be able to last very long. It'd be like trying to swim. When you swim and you hold your breath, you get a lot more tired, and you're breathing in and out like inconsistently, you fatigue quicker. Versus when you're running and you have that constant flow, you don't fatigue as quickly. So that's what I want to kind of take the breath work that Stephen did and kind of integrate that into the fitness. It's like, how do we maintain this dynamic stability while we're moving? Along those lines, because when we breathe in, we're taking in air, it drives our position and our posture. So I'm going to bring my model over here. So if Henry's standing straight right now in a pretty good stacked position, when he breathes in and out, and it's a little bit harder because he has a shirt on right now, but when he breathes in and out, he's basically just getting a little bit bigger and a little bit smaller. I think of congruent shapes back in math class. You go from like that triangle here to that triangle here, and it has all the same angles. It's just a little bit wider and bigger. So if we were looking down for him, he'd be a column that's here, and then just getting a little bit bigger and back. Now, if he starts in an extended position, so chest up high, pelvis a bit tilted downwards. When he breathes in, his breath is going to accentuate this position or exacerbate this position. So when he breathes in, now what's happening is his chest is driving up more and his pelvis is driving back more. That might actually be good for certain movements. Think about when you're doing a kip and you're going to that extension. But it's not great if we want to keep that nice neutral support while we're squatting or doing other related movements like a deadlift. Vice versa, if he were to start kind of collapsed, slouched, and slumped through here, so say he's like, okay, I gotta pull my abs down, I need to really hold here. When he breathes in, it's gonna drive this position. And so this may actually be helpful if he's trying to do a toes to bar because he needs to be able to compress, but it's not gonna be helpful if he's trying to overhead squat because what's happening is when he's breathing here, it's gonna drive him into more flexion and rounding versus when his arms are overhead, he needs more of that extension. So you can relax now, thank you. So we're gonna take that into consideration as well when we're going over our dynamic stabilization and when we're thinking about the breath today. So what I wanna go over a couple little rules when we're breathing. So lifting, when we're lifting, you wanna be able to breathe in and out consistently. So let me have you have the barbell. So usually when we're lifting, we've been kind of taught when you get under the bar, you want a front squat? Okay. When you get under the bar, usually you're kind of taught, okay, breathe in, and you're gonna hold that breath as you go down, and then you're gonna kind of exhale, hold the breath as you come up. That's that Valsalva maneuver that we're taught to kind of maintain tight pressure through here. That is okay to do when you're above 80% of your max load. If you're below 80%, in order to keep that nice dynamic core stabilization pattern, you want to be able to breathe in as you go down, exhale as you come up. Breathe in as you go down, exhale as you go up. So as a rule of thumb, you want to be able to have continuous breath going at 80% or less of your 1 rep max. That becomes especially important when we then translate this from like strength, so like a 5x5 back squat, to then when you're doing a bunch of front squats in the like open workout where we had those 15 front squats. So if he's holding his breath, every time he's doing his squat, he's breathing in, going down, exhaling up, breathe in, go down, exhale, go up. Now make it a little more continuous. Sorry, but with the breath hold. He practices the other way, so this is challenging for him. Basically, half the time he's not breathing. You can get a little lightheaded and exactly. Oh, seeing stars. Versus, under that load, he wants to be able to continually breathe in as he goes down, exhale, come up. Breathe in, go down, exhale, go up. Now, there are different implications here that we'll talk about a little bit further down the line when I can't sync my breath with the movement, what do I do? But in general, if he's used to having to use his breath to help with that stability, using his diaphragm to brace his rib cage, and using those abs from a concentric, so squeezing standpoint, it's gonna greatly limit and impact your ability to breathe in the Metcon. So, breath holding, great for 80% and above. I would argue that you should always be able to exhale while you're lifting, but 80% and above, you can use that breath holding strategy. 80% and below, you need to be able to breathe during that movement. Same thing for presses, and actually same thing for gymnastics movements. You should be able to breathe while doing a strict pull-up if you've truly mastered that strict pull-up and have that strength. You need to be able to breathe while doing those kipping pull-ups, in and out, consistent airflow. So that's kind of our rule for lifting. I realize I'm pointing at the board and you can't see it. I'll show it at the very end where you can then kind of like take a snapshot if you like. Gymnastics. Gymnastics are a little bit different because there's often this flexion extension component to our gymnastics. So typically in gymnastics, I would say if you're really well mastered and you have your breath under control, I'm gonna have you hop up on the bar, Henry. When you breathe in, I'm gonna do do you want to do pull-ups or shirts of bar? Actually, do a beat swing. Do a beat swing. So when he breathes in, he's going to be going into that extension and exhaling as he comes into flexion. So hollow would be exhale, and then arched would be inhale. And relax there. Reasoning for that, when you breathe in, you need to create more space to let that air come in. Exhaling, you're losing volume, air is coming out, so that's going to lead to more compression. There's a big caveat to this. Notice he is braced and there's control with this movement. Go back up. If he's not controlling his inhale when he's going into extension and he just loses it, watch what happens. Can you do that? I can try. I can do it. It looks all kind of wormy because he doesn't have that eccentric control the abs going on. It'd be the equivalent if you pop down for me. Can you do some leg raises, and then I just want you to relax your legs down versus controlling them. So it'd be the equivalent of this. If you were doing leg raises, brace, and if you just relax it on the way down, it kind of flops. Now re-brace. And try to do that right now. Try to go back up if you relax on the way down. It's hard. Look how much harder that is. First is control the descent and then come back up. Are you holding your breath right now?
No.
Okay, good. And relax. I'm just trying to basically demonstrate how you need that eccentric control, and that's often why we have a really hard time with our kipping movements. It's because we're not letting those abdominals lengthen with control going into this position, and we're just letting them go there, and then we're trying to re-engage. Letting them go and trying to re-engage. So, when you're practicing your beat swings during warm-up, a great way to practice your breath as well is, can you breathe in as you go into extension, and can you exhale as you come back? And see if that actually helps with your rhythm and helps you with the core control as well. You can then take this to your toes bar. So I'm going to have you do 5 toes bar. I want you to breathe in as you go into extension, exhale as you come up. So if you're somebody that struggles at the very top of the toes bar, and relax down, if you're holding your breath, you can't then crunch more. You gotta let go of that breath. So hold your breath as you try and bring your legs up. Is that harder? I mean, you're still able to do it because you're good at toes bar, but is that harder?
Yeah, it's not the same motion.
Yeah, doesn't have that same flow component.
I have to work harder to get.
Yeah, he's working harder. He's like literally having to crunch versus his breath helping bring him there.
And I get out of breath more.
Yeah, and get out of breath more. Now, once again, when we get to the point of a workout when our breathing rate can't match our movement rates, we have some different strategies for that, or that's when you're really accomplished and have good control over your breath and your movement. But you can use your breath to also help you learn movements that you've been struggling with. So go to your toes bar, and if you've been having a hard time getting your feet up there, notice, do you hold your breath to do so? Or if you exhale as you do it, does it assist with that movement? All right, cool. So gymnastics, and then so Metcons. So we kind of already talked about this a little bit, but if you're used to using a breath holding strategy when doing your squats and stuff, if then when you have to go into Metcon, so say like let's do snatches for example. If you're used to, as you're coming up from your snatch, I breathe in like this, I'm literally holding my breath for half of that movement. So that means if I'm using that same strategy during, say, Isabel, which is 30 snatches per time, I'm holding my breath half that time. When instead, you want to be able to breathe in through that entire movement. So during warm-up and stuff, focusing on your breath. And that's also where some movement mastery comes into control. If you're thinking so hard to do the movement well, you're not going to be able to focus on your breath. Or you'll know you've really accomplished a movement where you can breathe with ease while doing it. Similar to what Stephen talked about, noticing what positions and postures you tend to hold your breath or lose your breath more quickly. Yeah. Do you want to demonstrate any of that, or any input on that, or?
I commonly see that when people are kind of in this overhead position, that's a challenging position to breathe in, either on the bar or when pressing or snatching, either because it's difficult to exhale, or they're actually clenching their jaw, their teeth, or their neck, and it's just really difficult to get the air in up overhead, because that potentially is a vulnerable position. So you start losing that braced position, or you lose that ability to breathe overhead. Or when we're like holding common positions like planks, when our abs are actually on, it's grip more, but we lose the ability to expand the abdominal wall, and we lose that control and either increase pressure, or we start holding our breath for those positions. If you find that you're in Metcons, you probably know you're getting tired because you're starting to hold your breath more so than when you started. So for example, if I'm doing Isabel again, okay, 30 snatches for time, I might be able to breathe, but by the time I get to 15 reps, I probably started to hold my breath just because of fatigue, not necessarily
Do you mean muscular fatigue?
Like muscular fatigue.
Yeah.
So that's when I start to use the diaphragm more as a muscle to help with the movement and help stabilize, help support, than as a breathing muscle. So once you start to use or lose the breath, or start to feel like you have to hold your breath, you're probably switching mechanics so that you can recruit the diaphragm more for muscle support, if you will, during the movement.
Because the rest of your body is tired.
Because the rest of the body's tired, right?
Which actually brings me into like how to put some of this stuff into practice. So there are, and we'll use that plank push-up as the example. So there are 4 different questions that I kind of, or like an algorithm you can kind of ask yourself. First off, can I breathe in this braced position or this posture statically? Then can I dynamically sync my breath with the movement? So if we're using the push-up as an example, can I breathe in a plank? Letting my abs go with control and letting them draw in with control, and not letting my spine change shape. Then can I incorporate that into a push-up, so dynamic movement, where I'm going to sync my breath in on the way down, exhale on the way up. And then can you breathe, maintain that pressure control through here while your breath is not synced with the movement. So think about in a workout, as your heart rate's getting higher and you're breathing, you have to breathe harder. Can I still maintain good pressure here even though I may not have that standard like exhale with the harder portion of the movement going on? And then after that, can you breathe into flexion and extension with control without it driving you into different positions? So we'll use the plank as an example. So let me have you go down into a plank. You're in the screen. Okay, good. Yeah, good. So in a plank position here, it's not a plank. And practice your breathing. Untuck your bum. There you go. So he was butt gripping. I'm correcting him there. We don't want him to grip his butt too much here, because if you grip your butt, then you can't let the pelvic floor expand while you're breathing. So can you breathe here? No butt gripping. Can you feel your ribs expand laterally like Stephen talked about? Can you feel your abdominals let go a little bit? Good, and you can start to see he's getting some rib cage expansion here. All right, you can take a break. So that'd be like test number 1. Can you breathe, not up here in your plank, down here in your plank? Just like when you're standing or sitting after you, or laying on your back after you practice Stephen's workshop. So thing number 1, then can you breathe during your push-up, or are you holding your breath during your push-up? So Henry, let's have you do 5 push-ups and breathe during it. Inhale, exhale. Good. And relax. If that's challenging, if you find, like for example, myself, push-ups are challenging, I have to exhale, I have to hold my breath often on the way up, and I get very out of breath during push-ups. So one strategy is to use a band. I use a band, I put myself in the band, and that band provides enough assistance where then I can practice my breathing pattern during the push-up because it's taken some of the stability demand away. So I no longer am using my diaphragm to brace my core, I use my diaphragm to breathe. So you can wrap a band around the top of a pull-up rig, you can get in it and take away some of the difficulty of the push-up to then practice breathing with it. With Murph coming up, this is gonna be good practice for you guys. So that's dynamically syncing it with the movement. So now, Henry, let's have you pretend you just went for a run. Actually, I want you to do 10 burpees as fast as you can. Or would you prefer to do 40 jumping jacks? Okay. I want you to do 40 jumping jacks as fast as you can. Right. I'm trying to get his heart rate up. And then I want you to do the same push-ups and see and tell us what feels different when your heart rate's up. Okay? So 40 jump jacks, as fast as you can. So essentially, I'm trying to make his heart rate go up, make his breathing rate go up, and see, can he maintain that same kind of stabilization pattern? Does he start to breath hold? He's really good at push-ups, so I should probably make this harder for him by putting a weight on his back, but he didn't know he was signing up for this. Those are wimpy jumping jacks. He does this. It's not a jumping jack.
Close enough.
All right, 5 push-ups. So he's pretty good. I can hear him. He's breathing in as he goes down, exhaling as he comes up, because he's pretty good at push-ups. But did that feel different? Or did that feel pretty good for you?
That felt fine. I didn't have to hold my breath. But
Okay.
if you asked me to go do like a heavy squat or something, I'd have to change strategies.
Yeah, so this isn't a hard enough demand for him versus if myself would do this, and I'm not going to do this because I don't feel like getting sweaty. I would have to hold my breath or really struggle to push up from there because now I'm trying to, and I would be out of breath more because I'm confused about, do I use my diaphragm to breathe? Do I use my diaphragm to stabilize? So essentially, it just goes to show when you start to add another layer, your strategy may change a bit. All right, so let's take, we don't have a rower in here, but rowing's a great example where I see this, where when you start out rowing and your stroke feels really good and smooth and you'll be able to sync your breath with your stroke. And then as you get tired, does your stroke change as you're getting tired? Not because your muscles are tired, it's because you're breathing more. So if your stroke, the way it looks, starts to change as your breathing rate goes up, say you went for a run and then had to get on the rower, or did a bunch of burpees and then had to get on the rower, then you know you're using your diaphragm to help with your rowing movement versus using your diaphragm to breathe. So I would challenge you, I'm just trying to shoot out some examples, noticing like when you're rowing, can you maintain the same stroke rate and pattern but double your breath? So instead of it being like breathe in, exhale, breathe in, exhale, can you that would show that you can use your diaphragm to breathe and you're not trying to use your diaphragm to assist with your rowing movement. I hope that concept makes sense. If that's confusing, just shoot me a message and I'll confuse you more. No, I'll clarify for you. Okay, plank. Let's talk about the squat. So we've done a little bit of this, but traditionally while squatting, you want to breathe in on the way down, exhale on the way up. Breathing here, let me have you show a couple. As he goes down, his pelvic floor is opening as he goes down, so breathing in, and then as you exhale, everything's closing up together. Breathe in, go down, exhale, come up. So that would be, if you wanted to practice static control here, you would breathe at the top. Can you breathe standing with a column? And can you breathe at the bottom? Can you just breathe here without your spine changing shape? If it's challenging for you to breathe here, then practice some breathing here. So you can use, if you can't breathe here at the bottom, if you're using your diaphragm for core support, not diaphragm for breathing, which is going to make the 300 air squats and Murph a lot harder. Okay. So that would be like thing number one. I have control over my static position. Dynamic, syncing with the movement, like we just went in. Inhale down, exhale up. Can you pretend you're really tired, like you're doing a bunch of wall balls? Can you breathe in and can you exhale down, inhale up? First off, how does that feel? So we're gonna asymptomatic sync it. Okay, and now let's see, does your position or posture change at all if you like breathe, double your breathing rate? So he's, once again, really good at this. His position and posture, his trunk looks great even though he's doubled his rate of breathing and relax. So you can video yourself and breathe in and out as you go down, in and out as you come up, and see, does that change your squat mechanics? If it changes your squat mechanics, then you're using your diaphragm to assist with your squat and not using your diaphragm to help with your breath. And this would probably look a lot different if I loaded him with like 135 pounds. Then he may not be able to do that double breath, and he may be then having to use the bar, or use his diaphragm, excuse me, to help brace his core. All right, handstands. Practice breathing in your handstand. So, kick on up for me. Nothing should really change here. When he's breathing here, we should still see that lateral expansion. So you can kind of see as he's breathing, you can't tell that he's breathing because everything looks good in and out. But if he doesn't brace well here to begin, so let your like arch a little bit. When he breathes here, it's gonna drive. That's gonna drive a more extended posture, and it's actually gonna make it a lot hard. Like he's struggling to hold himself now. Versus, you don't really see the opposite here. So okay, you can come down from there. So then handstand push-ups. Syncing your breath-wise, there's two different schools of thoughts here. One school of thought is you should actually inhale as you're pressing up overhead because you need that inhalation to expand the ribs as your arms are going up. Another school of thought is you exhale as you're going up because it's harder, and you use that exhale to help with the core stability. Practice both. So can you actually actively breathe in or out as you're doing your handstand push-up, or do you hold your breath and just breathe at the top and breathe at the bottom? You want to breathe during the movement. And then if you're like, okay, I can do that pretty well, to make it more challenging, go run, or go do a bunch of burpees, or some double unders, or some box jumps, or whatever movement, some wall balls you like to do to get your heart rate up, and then practice. And practice the breath. Don't even count your reps. Practice, can I maintain a smooth in and out breath while I'm doing it? Barbell cycling. Okay, so when you're cycling the barbell, when it's a deadlift, you want to breathe in on the way down, exhale on the way up. Breathe in, down, exhale up. So if you have a lot of deadlifts to do in a workout, and you want to maintain a good, you don't want your heart rate to spike and red line quickly, you would then want to make your barbell cycling speed the same with your natural breathing rate. So like, what would that look like for you? Good. So that would be, I would say, his aerobic barbell cycling breathing rate. Versus if you try to go a lot faster, does your breath change at all, or do you start to hold your breath?
No, breath changes.
Your breath changes? How do your breath change?
I went faster.
So you actually increase your breathing rate to match still?
Yep.
So the ideal, like I just said, the ideal is you breathe in on the way down, exhale on the way up. But in a workout, when our heart rate's up high, we can't always do that. So I would also say when the weight's light, practice and seeing how it feels, exhaling down, inhaling up. You can see his movement pattern changes a little bit. That's a little more challenging. And relax.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Yeah, you don't like
Oh,
it.
yeah,
Don't do that if you're lifting heavy or for strength. But because in a workout, sometimes that breathing cycle changes, it can be helpful to practice it while it's at a weight that's safe for you and under control. At the same time, if you're tired in the middle of a workout, you can think about all right, I need to provide some more stability to my system so I don't hurt myself. Let me make sure I exhale on the way up and I'm breathing on the way down and not just always holding my breath. Toes to bar. So let's finish with some flexion extension. So toes to bar, or we did toes to bar earlier, so let's do pull-ups. So pull-ups, I think we can see you. Yeah. So when you're doing pull-ups, once again, you want to think about maintaining that smooth breath control. So if he's doing a kipping pull-up, he's going to exhale as he pulls up, inhale as he goes down. Exhale, breathe in. Good. And as you get tired, if you're finding you're holding your breath at the top, it probably means you need to get down and rest a little bit. So then say you're doing Fran. Your heart rate's out of control and you need to be able to still breathe while doing your pull-ups. You can practice, like, can you double your breathing cadence while you do this? So actually practicing like a quicker breathing cadence, you can actually see as he's doing that, his form's getting a little funky. Yeah, because flexion extension really affects how your breath is, or your breath is affected by that. It makes more sense to breathe in as you're extending, and to exhale as you're collapsing. So it's really hard to extend and exhale and breathe in and compress because the two movements contradict each other. But that happens when we're doing Metcons. So being able to practice both, or if you're like, man, my kip, it's just like all over the place. What's going on? Okay, tap back into that breathing rhythm, and that can help with the coordination of the movement. Maybe step down, shake it out, 10, 20 seconds, take a couple breaths, get that heart rate to come down just enough so then find that rhythm again. Anything to add there?
No, that's good.
Same thing with toes to bar. Same thing with muscle ups. Exhale up, inhale down. Exhale up, inhale down. Yeah. Okay. This feels like a natural stopping point. We're about 30 minutes in. I could talk about this all day long. I love talking about fitness and how to incorporate those like PT principles that we do into your performance. So if you have any questions, or if you want me to take a look at a video, you can send it along to our Instagram, which is sb.pt. Is that our Instagram? Or is it .sbpt?
No, you're right.
I should probably know. Okay. Or you can find us on Facebook. But yeah, so if you ever want to talk shop, let us know, and I hope you found some useful tips.